naturally. I'm a shy person naturally, and I used to get my hair cut on a barbershop in 15th Street Northeast, and I would go there, and everyone in the barbershop would just snap on each other. And I'd sit in the corner and I'd watch everybody and just listen to all these jokes. The guys were funny as shit, but one day, after a few weeks of going there getting my hair cut, they turned the jokes on me. I call that day the Barbershop Massacre. I lit everybody in that barbershop up. I've been sitting in there listening to for weeks talk about each other. I knew every inside joke about each and every one of them, and they couldn't believe I knew. And from then on in the neighborhood, people kind of like me. Oh, those guys. That I don't know that I've seen since I left this school. I can remember, and I won't say names, there was a student that went here that used to sell drugs. It wasn't just a student, but this particular guy. This particular guy did the cardinal no-no on the streets. He did what they call not making your roll, which meant that he got some drugs on consignment and he didn't pay whoever gave him the drugs back. And whoever gave him those drugs had declared, I'm gonna come to that school and I'm gonna kill you, he said. And my man was scared. And the word got around school that the Goons was coming. And by the time the Goons showed up, every dude that went to this school, gay, straight, whatever the fuck, was all standing out front. They said, you have to kill all of us. And who was in front of all of them? Roger Bellamy with some leg warmers on like this. I didn't have the suspicion that most new kids get. I was an oddity, a new toy. I was quirky. I wasn't a snappy dresser. I didn't really know what the fuck was going on because the crack epidemic itself was new to me, and they were all refugees from their neighborhood schools. In the morning, we would have our academic classes, and then in the afternoon, we would have our arts classes. It was a long school day. We started at 8:30. We wouldn't leave here at 5, sometimes 5:30, whenever they saw fit. It's funny walking in here tonight, because I saw the pride flags up. And I remember when I came here all those years ago, it's the first time I'd ever met a kid who was just like gay. And was never strange to us. Their sexuality or their gender identity was the least remarkable thing about a person that could dance as well as Roger Bellamy or there was no distinction between any of that. Everybody was weird in their own way. And in a very strange way, because we spent so much time with one another, we helped raise one another. Not to get his approval, but to avoid his disapproval. When we were coming up, they had a thing called Juries. I don't know, do they still do Juries? Juries is when all the department heads give you a piece to work on and they sit there and they make you perform the piece, and the criticism is brutal. We were kids. We didn't understand that they were preparing us for a hard world ahead. If you wanted a profession in art, they would tear us to shreds. The stress of a jury, and man, I never practiced. Remember what it was first like? when you first walked through the door. And it was in the afternoon and everyone was in their arts classes and the girls had tutus on. And everyone was weird and walking around the hallway like you weren't sure where anyone was supposed to be, and you could hear people practicing their horns and shit all through the hallways. There was art bouncing off the walls. The minute I walked through the door, there was a gallery of all these children's work, and these pictures were amazing. My first thought, when I walked through that door, I'm not good enough to be here. I've seen since I left this school. I can remember, and I won't say names, there was a student that went here that used to sell drugs. It wasn't just a student, but this particular guy. This particular guy did the cardinal no-no on the streets. He did what they call not making your roll, which meant that he got some drugs on consignment and he didn't pay whoever gave him the drugs back. And whoever gave him those drugs had declared, I'm gonna come to that school and I'm gonna kill you, he said. And my man was scared. And the word got around school that the Goons was coming. And by the time the Goons showed up, every dude that went to this school, gay, straight, whatever the fuck, was all standing out front. They said, you'll have to kill all of us. And who was in front of all of them? Roger Bellamy with some leg warmers on like this. I'll spare you all the details of why it didn't work out. But it didn't work out. And I ended up doing something that no one had ever seen before, including myself. Maybe Prince is the only other guy that I've seen do this, where he just quit something that was popular when you're at the very top of it. Lucky for me, when I quit, I went to Africa, so there was a media storm that I didn't hear. By the time I got back, everyone was just looking at me crazy. That was a very difficult decision to make. The entire world told me I was crazy, but I was sure I was being true to myself and to something that I learned at Ellington. I'm one of those comedians that thought of himself as an artist. I was enamored by what the genre could do. It was like the pictures that I could paint with words and the way I could engage with audiences. I understood as it was happening. I was very lucky to be able to do this. And I protected that. And I knew that if I took the money, they would expect me to behave differently. And I wasn't willing to accept that. So I quit. And when I quit, it was a very difficult time in my life that I'll spare you the details, but man, fuck show business. It was tough. I ain't saying names. One of the kids' mother went on Fox News. And she used to be a student here. I remember her face, but I don't know if she was particularly popular. Anyway. She was in the literary media arts department. She said a lot of things that I didn't like, a lot of things, but, you know, that's her right. Things she said that got to me. She said, at Duke Ellington, that theater was a sanctuary for students. I used to sit there and meditate. Well, of course you'd meditate. You were a literary media arts student. We didn't meditate in here, we got to work. But okay, fine. I would sit in there and meditate, she said. And then she scrunched her face up. She's a beautiful woman, but her face looked hideous the way she scrunched it up. And she said, and just to imagine his name on that theater. How could you do that to those kids? I took a lot of cold shots in show business. And I gotta tell you, as the years go on, you feel the shots less and less as just the business, is what you say. But that one, that day, boy, that day they hurt me. When I heard those talking points coming out of these children's faces, that really, sincerely hurt me. Because I know those kids didn't come up with those words. I've heard those words before. The more you say I can't say something, the more urgent it is for me to say it. And it has nothing to do with what you're saying I can't say. It has everything to do with my right, my freedom of artistic expression that is valuable to me, that is not separate from me. It's worth protecting for me, and it's worth protecting for everyone else who endeavors in our noble, noble professions. And these kids didn't understand that they were instruments of oppression. And I didn't get mad at them. They're kids, they're freshmen, they're not ready yet. They don't know. What made me mad, and I am this petty,